When I bought my new home in the capital city of my country, I thought I was starting a new chapter. It wasn't a mansion, it was a fixer-upper. The previous owners were family friends who had fallen on hard times and moved abroad years ago. I got the place at a great price, but the moment I stepped inside, I could feel this was going to be a challenge. The house had been abandoned mid-renovation. The front door, secured only with a padlock. No proper lock, no gate, meaning anyone could just wander in as if they owned the place. And guess what? On my very first day moving in, that's exactly what I found. A stranger's motorbike parked casually inside my garage. My blood boiled. But instead of picking a fight, I rolled the bike onto the street, got a proper gate installed, and figured that would be the end of it. But that was just the beginning. Later that day, a man came pounding on my brand new gate. His fists echoed through the metal, like he had every right to demand an explanation. From the window, I watched him fume, kick the ground, and finally roll his bike away in defeat. Already, the neighborhood wasn't giving me a warm welcome. Now, my house sits right next to an older 3-story home. The landlord lived on the ground floor, while his upper 2 floors were rented out to tenants. He was an older man, a retired mechanic, gray hair, bitter expression, and the kind of permanent scowl that tells you he's never happy about anything. And he wasn't happy about me moving in either. I later learned from the previous owners that this man had openly complained when the house was sold, as if he had some claim to it. But here's the thing. I'm 6 feet tall, I've got 3 big dogs, and I don't scare easily. So I brushed it off. At least, until the day I stepped into the shower and noticed something strange. The water pressure was weaker, almost like someone had turned down the faucet outside. At the same time, I heard the hum of a water pump coming from the neighbor's side. Now, for context, water here doesn't flow straight to the roof tanks. You need a pump to push it up. And if someone's siphoning water from your line, well, you'll feel it. I tested it. I waited until his pump shut off, then turned on the taps again. Perfect pressure. Then, the moment his pump started, weak flow. It didn't take a genius to put the pieces together. 3. Connecting the dots. The bills suddenly made sense. This house had been empty for years, yet somehow the water charges had been climbing higher and higher. At the time, the old leaks were blamed. But no, this wasn't leaks. This was theft. At some point in the last 3 years, my charming neighbor had broken into the property, tapped into my water line, and decided to make me his free utility provider. The thought made my stomach twist with rage. It wasn't about the money. Water here is dope cheap. $5 a month. Tops. But it was the principle. The arrogance. The entitlement. The fact that this old man thought he could just take what wasn't his and never face consequences. For days, I wrestled with a decision. Do I confront him? Call the police? Just let it slide? But every time I thought of his smug face, of that first angry knock on my gate, of how he believed he owned this block, I knew I couldn't let it go. He had stolen from me. He had disrespected me. And worst of all, he thought he'd get away with it. That's when I realized I didn't need to fight him. I didn't need to step foot on his property. I could end this with one simple move. Monday night, I waited. I sat in the dark, lights off, it was straining. Then I heard it, the low buzz of his water pump kicking on. Right then, I walked to my mains valve, crouched down, and turned it off. Click, instant silence. See, here's how these pumps work. A ball valve in the tank senses when water is low, tells the pump to pull water until it's full, and shuts off. But since I'd cut off the supply, the pump would keep running forever. And when you starve a pump like that, you don't just burn the pump. You burn everything. At 3 a.m., the chaos started. I heard shouting, doors slamming, lights flickering on and off next door. Except only for a second. Then, darkness. Complete blackout. The pump had fried the ancient 90s wiring, killing not just the water but the entire power supply. By morning, the tenants were furious. Their voices carried through the thin city walls, screaming at the landlord for ruining their lives. In my country, water and electricity are considered essential services. Landlords are legally required to provide them. If they don't, tenants can sue. And sue they did. Both floors filed complaints. By day 2, One tenant had already packed up and left. By day 3, both were gone. The landlord was slapped with a $500 fine, a huge sum here, plus the responsibility to return security deposits and pay for massive repairs. His only source of income? Gone. 2 days later, the old man showed up at my gate. His face was blank, but his eyes burned with quiet fury. "Did you turn off your water?" he asked flatly. I gave him the most innocent smile I could muster. "Oh, yeah," I said casually. "Had a little leak in my pipes. Needed to shut it off until the plumber came by." He held my gaze for a long moment. His jaw tightened. His nostrils flared. But he said nothing, just muttered, "Oh, okay," and shuffled back inside. And that was it. The fight was over. He knew, I knew, but he could never prove it. By the end of the week, he was gone, packed up and moved to his daughter's place. Broke, humiliated, abandoned by his tenants, and forced out of the very home he once lorded over. All because he thought he could steal my water. And me? I got the last laugh. With one flick of a tap, I rid myself of the parasite and secured my peace of mind. 2 birds, 1 stone. The best part? He'll never admit what happened. He'll never tell anyone that his greed and arrogance cost him everything. But every time I walk past that empty house, every time I see that padlocked gate, I smile. Because I know the truth. The old man tried to steal from me, and I made him pay in full. You know, people think revenge has to be loud, messy, dramatic. But sometimes it's as quiet as turning a valve. Karma doesn't always need a storm. Sometimes it just needs patience and a little nudge in the right direction. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button. Tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or experienced? And of course, don't forget to subscribe, because I've got plenty more stories where this came from. Until next time, stay sharp and don't let anyone steal your water.